Hi guys, so in this video I wanted to talk about a symptom that I've always had, but over the last few weeks, because things have been a bit tumultuous for me to say the least, I have noticed again and actually been able to turn down quite a bit. So when I first had my psychotic episode, I was like 18 years old, and for some reason I got it in my head that I needed to be famous in order to fight off an evil that I believed had injected me with a virus and all this very crazy stuff. And I went to London of all places, and this is where the symptom first happened. In the billboards and the bus signs, the faces I used to feel were talking to me, communicating with me, and that used to happen pretty much all the time whenever my emotional state was slightly weakened. So let me give you an example of what I mean by it. So say I'm in a delusional episode and I believe that there's people after me trying to kill me, or there's people surveilling me, and then I will watch a advert or something and the person will just make a gesture like this or a smile, and it can be a static image or it can be a moving image, and for some reason my brain used to interpret that face or that expression as something communicating with me. So you know how, say, you were sat next to me or something and something funny was happening in front of us and we looked at each other and went, that has a meaning to it. You immediately look at the other person's face and go, yeah, it is funny. You know, there's that immediate like telepathic communication to it. And what it's like is I'll see the billboards, or I'll see a sign, or I'll see a YouTube ad or something, and it'll have that facial expression, and it will be like it's communicating its emotion to me in that moment. And it's not necessarily the symptom. That's quite benign. It's a very warped way of experiencing reality, because obviously that's not the case. But it's quite benign, and what it is more of like a building element. So I mentioned this a lot in my earlier videos. There's things that build the psychoses, these experiences which contribute to the manifestation of the worst psychotic episode. And this thing, I don't know what to call it, uncontextual face recognition, I think it's just a formation of faulty pattern recognition ultimately, which is a lot behind what builds schizophrenia. And psychoses, psychoses. Faulty pattern recognition is kind of at the bedrock layer of what leads to the manifestation of the psychotic break. And these things will reinforce the way that I'm feeling or thinking about a certain thing. And then that will lead to me instilling a belief about my experience that then culminates in this very bizarre break eventually. So say, for example, I'm in London and I believe there are people after me, and I'm noticing all these billboards that are confirming, say I'm thinking in my head, yeah, they are after me, they're going to try to get me at this point, but I'm going to do something like this and get away from them here. And then I look up, I see the billboard and it's like that or something. I'm like, yes, that's true, okay, I need to keep thinking like that, that's what I need to do now. And that's what the thought process is like. And so it doesn't, the symptom is benign, but it builds on the delusion. I think the worst extremity of that was, I guess it really is kind of like a faulty, right, so what I think it is, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it, but there is a third man syndrome for people who climb Mount Everest. And so in insanely high altitudes, when they're going through extremely stressful situations, they imagine there's another person with them. It's like a inbuilt biological survival mechanism. And I think that that's what's activating in these very intense moments. Because when you're going through psychoses, your nervous system believes what you're going through. And I would say that it even parallels people climbing Mount Everest. I would say that some of the psychoses that you can go through, some of the alternate metaphysical realities that can be thrust upon you, are far beyond climbing a mountain. And so it engages that survival mechanism, that biological mechanism. You can look it up, third-person syndrome. And then, third-person syndrome Mount Everest will probably find it for you on Google. And then that activates that survival mechanism, which tries to promote the existence of another person to help calm you down, or to help reinforce, that fight, that carrying on, that movement forwards. And so that's what I believe it is. And when I first figured that out, because love or hate YouTube shorts, sometimes they do throw you the odd cherry, Once I'd realised that from the YouTube short, got it from the YouTube short, and then that kind of sits in my mind for a while. I didn't make the connection, because that's the same with a lot of these things that I've experienced. I haven't made the connections between real things, biological circuits, for example, and my experiences. So it's taken a long time to sift through and provide explanation to these things. But once I'd connected that, it was able to tone down that experience, because I was like, okay, I'm going through that mechanism, I'm seeing this, it's not related to me, in fact it is a static object, but through that third man syndrome I'm creating it as an existential object, and that's interfering and building in the psychotic delusions. And then that becomes a point of introspection, and then that becomes a habit. So habitually now, if I notice that I'm reading a signal from a face or an advert or a screen or billboard, instead of building into the delusion like I used to as a habitual circuit, I now have a habitual circuit that activates the self-reflection and going, oh, I'm drifting a bit too much again. I'm in an episode of stress again, so I need to return to base, calm myself, and then critically analyze what I'm going through. And it's really hard to just explain how long the last 12 years have been for me, because this is what I've been doing for the last 12 years, is trying to go through these symptoms and map out every single thing effectively so that I'm able to restore calm to myself, which has been a mess, a great mess, but I'm really getting it now. It's very, very exciting. How long have I got? 7 minutes. This video's 7 minutes. Okay. Another thing is, with a lot of this stuff, a lot of these symptoms of psychoses, I can't get over how many times I've probably said this, but I really don't think there is an understanding of this condition at all. I really think that this is a neuroses of the nervous system which leads to a psychosis. Now, funnily enough, the original definitions of these words had more meaning than they do today. And neuroses just means an abnormal state in the body, something that's not existing in correlation with the outside reality. If there's a lion in front of you, it's very right to get nervous and panicky. If you're just sat in a field like I am now, that's a bit idyllic and maybe a little bit of a shit pit, but there's no reason for me to be all over the place and jittery. That's neuroses. Psychosis is when it's the same thing. If my mind is in this idyllic place, there's no reason for me to start imagining scenarios where a lion's going to come and get me. I should have this mapped out metaphysically enough to provide security for both my body and my mind, visually and cognitively. And in that makes a lot more sense. And I feel like what's happened, especially within the sickness of psychiatry, there is an over-focus upon the presence of something rather than the root of something. And you can see that echoed throughout this literature of disintegration. You begin with something that's quite easy to define, and instead of them creating new words and new elements which create some more concretized pieces to things, they fragment and fragment and fragment and split things off so that it becomes so convoluted that when someone hears the word schizophrenia or psychoses, the thing that they go to most accurately in their mind is the worst representation of that, which is a label thing that means the person is crazy. Whereas the opposite, from those just definitions I gave you, where the opposite is that the society has failed people to a degree where it's unable to keep the environment safe or the metaphysical planes mapped out enough to provide safety for an individual. That would be the logical way to see things. However, it's not like that today. And one of the things that I'm hoping to do by mapping all of this out through common sense, and obviously people will say, well, these things need medication, they don't just need understanding. That's a very old way of thinking. They need everything. in a perfect world, if someone presents to an institution with schizophrenia, they need a dietitian, they need a psychiatrist to handle the worst epigenetic effects of the mind, so they do need to calm down in a sense, so medication is useful in that sense. They need a psychotherapist, which is able to help build a model of reality again. They need a trustful environment, so they need proper friendship groups and things that they can rebuild trust and integration and exercise those circuits that often atrophy, because isolation is the best predictor of decay of the mind. And then they need, what was the other one? Blimey. Then they need a physiotherapist. A lack of exercise atrophies the brain. A good amount of exercise increases cortical thickness. And so the atrophy of all these locations in the brain can actually, in schizophrenia, I think could be reversed with the proper intervention. And so it's really, really frustrating for me to be alive in this time at the moment, when you have this overly simplistic, low-effort model that exists for people with mental health, when in reality it would be a lot less cost-effective, but a lot better for people in general if we went down the route of a holistic approach. And so people say to me, people have got very angry with me, including people who have the condition that I've left these Discords now for this reason. Because it just, Reddit especially, oh my goodness, people are very violent with words there. But I would say things like, well, I think this branch is lacking this amount of education, and they're like, oh, so everybody should just come off medication. And I'm like, no, I'm not saying that. There needs to be a fully holistic approach, which includes medication, but not what we have at the moment, which is just medication. And so you'll go through these experiences, and you can look this up, statistic, a very low amount of people in the UK and America have access to behavioural therapies. And as I've just said, you need a physiotherapist as well. You also need an environmental therapy thing, so just an environment where you can be normal and be in a safe environment, and have enjoyable moments, maybe play chess and stuff. This is why I think we need a specialised hospital. And not pill people up to the end where effectively it just doesn't help people. But that's what I want to change anyway, and I think I'm actually doing good now, where in maybe about 3 or 4 months I can really push all of this stuff forwards and do something very good with it. I really do believe that. But yeah, that was that symptom and half rant. I can't help myself. Have a good day.